Today, we're here to honor and celebrate a true giant in the world of American Kenpo. The entire martial arts community, we recently felt a huge loss with the passing of 10th degree senior master Sifu Richard Huk Planas at the age of 78. So in this explainer, we're going to take a deep dive into the incredible legacy he built, the life he lived, and the wisdom he so generously shared with all of us. You hear this phrase a lot when people talk about him. An instructor's instructor. And that title, it just gets right to the very heart of who Sifu Planas was. It's what made him a legend. See, he didn't just show you moves. He revealed the deep logic, the geometry, the physics, the why behind every single movement. He wanted you to understand it, not just mimic it. And our deep dive into his amazing life, it's really made possible thanks to the hard work of the Mind Sensei Podcast deep dive team, which is led by Peter Taz. They helped us gather this incredible history and all the stories we're about to share with you. So let's really unpack that. What did it truly mean to be an instructor's instructor? Well, for Sifu Planas, it wasn't just a title, it was everything. It was the very core of his philosophy on what martial arts are supposed to be. Sifu Planas was absolutely clear. Kenpo is a fighting art. Its entire purpose was for what he and the great Ed Parker called the moment of truth. That split second on the street where it all goes down. So he believed your training had to reflect that reality. It had to be hard. It had to be realistic. As he'd say, a block is a block, a kick is a kick. It needs to be hard, fast, and furious. No dancing around. He also really emphasized the element of surprise, which is so crucial. But his real passion, the part he loved the most, was formulation. That's the creative genius of Kenpo, taking the alphabet of motion and writing your own sentences, combining techniques on the fly. It proved that Kenpo wasn't some rigid, dead system. It was alive, it was adaptable, and it was yours to create with. But here's the thing. This legendary journey, this incredible life in martial arts, it almost never happened. In fact, you might be surprised to hear that this master of the art had a very, very reluctant start. Yeah, before he was a martial artist, Richard Planas was a musician. He was a dedicated guitarist, and that was his passion. So when his best friend came to him all excited about taking karate lessons, Planas was like, no way. His exact words were, I'm not going to mess up my hands. I can't play my guitar. I mean, his hands were his livelihood. They were his art. And he saw karate as a direct threat to the music he loved. But his friend, a guy named Cletus Hammock, he was persistent. He kept at him, and eventually he convinced Planas to just come visit the Kenpo school. No commitment, just check it out. And when he walked in, well, that's when everything changed. Because to his total surprise, he saw some of his fellow musicians there, training. And they came over and they assured him, look, we do this and we can practice without messing up our hands for our instruments. And that was it. That was all it took. He signed up right then and there, and his path was set on a course he never could have imagined. And that single decision, that one moment of saying yes, it put him on a direct path, a path to becoming an absolutely pivotal figure in American Kenpo history, the right-hand man to its legendary founder, the one and only Grand Master Ed Parker. So what about that famous name Huk? And it's pronounced Huck, by the way. Where did that come from? Well, it's a great story. It actually came from his very first instructor, Tom Kelly. Huk had this long hair and a pointed beard, and Kelly thought he looked like one of the Filipino Huk Balahop rebels. So he started calling him Rich the Huk, just as a joke. And over time, it got shortened to just Huk. But the name was really cemented when he was finally introduced to the man himself, Ed Parker. Parker took one look at him, laughed, and said, yeah, he looks like a Huk, doesn't he? And that was it. From that moment on, the name was permanent. So, as his skill grew and his relationship with Ed Parker deepened, his role became much more official. So the question is, what exactly was his position within the International Kenpo Karate Association, or the IKKA? Well, let me tell you, he wasn't just in the organization. He became absolutely central to its entire operation. His rise was, it was pretty quick. By 1969, he'd moved to Pasadena to work directly for Ed Parker. He even co-authored the Guide to the Nunchaku with him in '75. For the last 10 years of Mr. Parker's life, Sifu Planas held the title of Executive Vice President of the International Kenpo Karate Association. But maybe his most crucial role, the one that really defined his legacy, was being the state-of-the-art director. What does that mean? It means he was the quality control for the entire system. When Mr. Parker developed new material, like what's in the famous Big Red manuals, it was Huk's job to travel the world and ensure it was being taught correctly and consistently. He was the guardian of the art's integrity. And this whole idea, it all came from a core philosophy he inherited directly from Parker, who had this famous saying, "Because you show doesn't mean you know." It's so profound, right? It means anyone can demonstrate a flashy move. Anyone can show a technique. But do you know it? Do you know the principles, the concepts, the whys? It was Huk Planas' job to make sure instructors didn't just show Kenpo, but that they truly knew it. For him, knowledge was always, always deeper than just performance. Being so close to Ed Parker also brought him into the orbit of some pretty famous people, including Elvis Presley. There's this legendary story where Planas, who was a firearms enthusiast, managed to track down some really rare Mauser ammo for Elvis's collection. As a thank you, Elvis was about to gift him this beautiful Colt Python 357 revolver. But Planas, well, he was a Smith & Wesson man through and through. And without knowing what was happening, he just starts going on about how he doesn't like Colts, criticizing the design. Elvis just kind of smiled, took the gun back, and put it away. It wasn't until later that Ed Parker pulled him aside and said, "You screwed up. He was going to give you that gun." That gun is now in Graceland. It's a hilarious story, and it just perfectly shows his direct, honest, no-nonsense personality. But to only see Sifu Planas as a Kenpo master is really to miss the full picture. He was so much more than that. He was a true Renaissance man, a craftsman, an artist, a warrior of the road, with this just vast array of talents. Early on in his Kenpo journey, he was part of this really influential group known as the Fresno Four. It was him, Gary Swan, Steve LaBounty, and his instructor, Tom Kelly. And this group, they were absolutely foundational. They were pioneers who helped establish Ed Parker's American Kenpo in the Fresno area. And they were instrumental in its early growth across California. And his skills were just incredibly diverse. I mean, look at this. While Kenpo was clearly his primary art, his life's work, he was also a lifelong student of other systems like judo and silat. But his passions, they extended way beyond the dojo. He was a musician, a craftsman, a true artist in so many different fields. He was a professional guitarist playing in a band called Michael and the Jesters. And it was actually Ed Parker himself who got him interested in playing the ukulele. And that passion for the ukulele trickled down, later inspiring Peter Toss of the Mind Sensei team to pick it up. Beyond music, he was a master craftsman. He learned knife making from the absolute legend Gil Hibben up in Alaska. And he mastered the bullwhip, even collecting incredible examples from the famous Australian whipmaker Mike Murphy. He was just endlessly curious and talented. So he took all of this deep knowledge of Kenpo, all these incredible skills and life experiences, and he took it on the road. After he closed his physical schools, he became a true road warrior, dedicating his life to traveling and teaching. He taught seminars in over 17 countries, from Europe to South America. And this nomadic lifestyle, this constant motion, it gave birth to his organization, the Road Warrior Lineage. It was a name that was actually formalized by his senior student and great friend in Sweden, Professor Ingmar Johansson, because it just perfectly described who he was. This constant travel, it was about more than just teaching seminars. It was about building something that would last. It was about building a legacy, a structure to ensure that the flame of his knowledge, the Parker/Planas lineage, would continue to burn bright long after he was gone. To make sure that that legacy was secure and in keeping with his specific wishes, the Parker/Planas Lineage Committee was formally established. This wasn't just some casual group of friends. This was a dedicated council of his most senior and trusted students, and they were tasked with one of the most important jobs imaginable: preserving the purity and integrity of his teachings for all future generations. And this council, it's composed of some of the most high-ranking and deeply respected masters in the Kenpo world. You've got Sifu Marty Zinanovich, the Epperson brothers, Scott Halsey, and of course his senior students from around the world like Max Beichkov and Ingmar Johansson. Each one of them is completely committed to upholding the philosophy, the standards, and the essence of the Parker/Planas lineage. This is the structure he built. Now, upon Sifu Planas' passing, the committee performed one of its most solemn and important duties:
Following his explicit wishes and a strict adherence to Kenpo tradition, a tradition that says an heir can only be named upon the passing of the current head, they elevated Sifu Marty Zanovichix to the rank of 10th degree Senior Master of the Arts. This single act was monumental. It formally named an heir, it secured the head of the lineage, and it ensured a seamless continuation of his life's work.
The legacy of Huk Planas. It isn't just in the techniques he taught. It's in the minds he shaped, the community he built, and the questions he forced us to ask. He was the instructor's instructor, the Renaissance man, the road warrior. And through the incredible lineage that he so carefully and lovingly cultivated, the spiritual flame that he lit continues to burn brightly, guiding and inspiring Kenpo practitioners all over the world. Rest in peace, Sifu Planas. Your journey continues in all of us, and your incredible contributions will never, ever be forgotten.